The return to Omega Station. The stars outside the window shimmered like cold diamonds as the shuttle glided toward Omega Station. It was once a proud fortress in space, a battle station where heroes were made and wars were won. But now, its metal hull looked old and tired with flickering lights and faded banners. The docking bay hissed open, and an old man stepped out. He wore a long brown coat wrinkled from years of travel. His gray hair was tied back loosely, and a deep scar crossed one cheek. In his hand he held a cane, not because he was weak, but because something inside him had been broken long ago. He walked slowly, boots echoing on the metal floor. No one looked at him twice, just another visitor passing through a forgotten station. But someone was watching, hiding in the shadows above the walkway. She saw him the moment he stepped into the light. Her eyes widened and her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't seen him in 15 years, and yet she knew him instantly. He had saved her life. Long ago, during the Zarn War, he pulled her out of a burning building on the alien colony of Virelia. Back then, she was just a frightened child, dirty and starving, with chains around her wrists. Now she was a soldier, tall and proud, her deep purple skin glowing faintly under her uniform armor. Her long silver hair was braided behind her head, and her eyes, those bright golden eyes, were filled with emotion. She stepped forward, boots silent, heart loud. When the old man turned to look at her, his eyes were tired, almost empty. He didn't recognize her, not right away. She stood, tall and saluted just like humans do, and then with a voice filled with pride and memory she said, "It's an honor to serve you again, Captain." The old man blinked, staring at her as if trying to see through time. Then his eyes softened. A small smile touched his lips. "Virel," he whispered as if saying the name of a ghost. "You remember?" she said, her voice trembling. "I never forgot," he answered, looking at her face like a father seeing his daughter grown up. But their reunion was not private. A group of alien guards patrolling the area stopped and glanced. In their direction, one of them frowned and whispered to another, "That's the Phantom, Captain." "No, it can't be," said the second guard. "He vanished 15 years ago." "I heard he betrayed the council," said the third. "No!" Virel snapped, turning sharply toward them. "He's no traitor." The guards looked uneasy and walked away, but the whispers had already begun. Virel turned back to Elias, her heart heavy. "We shouldn't stand." "Here," she said. "Come with me." Elias nodded and followed her without a word. She led him through dimly lit corridors, past old weapon racks and broken training droids. Omega Station had been left behind by the new governments, forgotten like the soldiers who once served here. They entered a sealed chamber marked Command Level Restricted. Virel placed her palm on the scanner and the door opened with a slow hiss. Inside was a room full of old tech, glowing screens and faded war maps. This was the war room, the place where Elias once gave orders that changed the galaxy. He looked around, quietly taking it all in. "Still smells like metal and burnt coffee," he muttered. Virel smiled. "I cleaned it, but some things never change." She pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. A hologram appeared, showing a signal intercepted 2 days ago. It was encrypted, but part of the message was clear. "Project Rift. Awaken the Phantom." Elias froze. The color drained from his face and his hand tightened on his cane. "Where did you find this?" he asked, voice suddenly sharp. "It was sent from deep space near the Silent Nebula," Virel answered, "and addressed to someone named Elias Drake." Elias turned away, walking slowly toward the window. Outside, stars blinked silently. He said nothing for a long time. Virel stepped closer. "Captain, I know something is coming," she said, "and I believe only you know what it is." He turned back to her, eyes full of regret and secrets. "You're right," he said softly. "But if the rift is waking up, then we're already running out of time." Virel looked into his eyes, the same eyes that once gave her hope. "Then let's stop it together," she said. He looked at her for a moment and then slowly nodded. "Then this old soldier marches one last time," he said with a quiet smile. Outside Omega Station, the stars seemed to blink a little faster, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath, because the Phantom Captain had returned, and something dangerous was waking up in the dark. The war room was colder than Varel remembered. Though the lights still worked and the old control panel still blinked, something felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by memories. Memories of screaming soldiers, last-minute plans and orders shouted over crackling comms. Elias stood at the center, his cane resting lightly against the war table. He was silent, but his eyes scanned everything. Like a man walking through the graveyard of his own past, Varel stood beside him, unsure if she should speak. She had cleaned this room herself when she first returned to Omega Station. She had dusted off the cracked monitors, restored the data ports, even rebuilt the old communication relay. She had hoped, maybe one day, the captain would return, and now he had. But not as the strong commander she remembered. He looked older, slower, and tired. But when his fingers brushed the control panel, something changed. A spark of fire returned to his eyes just for a moment. "I used to stand right here," Elias said softly. "Gave the order to launch the Terran fleet from this very spot." He tapped a blinking screen, and an old battlefield. Map flickered to life, red and blue dots, ships, frozen in time. "That was the Battle of Hyros Belt," Varel said, stepping closer. Elias nodded. "We were outnumbered 5-1. But we still won," Varel added. "We did," Elias whispered, "but not without losing a third of our crew." The silence between them was heavy. Then Varel walked to a side console and pulled up the encrypted message again. The words flashed across the screen in sharp white text. "Project Rift, awaken the Phantom." Elias sighed deeply and finally spoke. "You don't know what that means, do you?" Varel shook her head. "Only rumors." Elias leaned on his cane, staring at the message like it might bite him. "Project Rift was never meant to be real," he said. "It was an idea we buried during the last days of the Zarn War when the enemy had started. Changing. Changing how?" Varel asked. "They were using void tech, opening tiny rifts in space to move their ships instantly," Elias explained. "We couldn't match it, so we made our own version, Project Rift. But it required something else, something far more dangerous." Varel frowned. "What did it need?" Elias hesitated. "A mind. Not just any mind," he continued. "It needed a hybrid consciousness, part human, part alien, blended into a living processor to control the rift." Varel's eyes widened. "You mean a person?" "Yes," Elias said. "And they asked me to choose the candidate." Varel stepped back, feeling cold all over. "I refused," Elias continued. "I shut the project down, deleted the files, burned everything. But someone kept a copy." He pointed to the message. "They're trying to finish what we stopped." Varel clenched her fists. "We have to stop them." Elias looked at her, truly looked at her. "Why are you here, Varel?" he asked. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You're not a soldier anymore," he said. "You're a leader now, with your own team, your own command. You could have stayed away, safe, yet here you are." She swallowed hard and looked him in the eyes. "Because you saved me," she said. "Because I owe you everything. And because if someone is trying to restart Project Rift, I can't ignore it." Elias nodded slowly, his voice lowered. "Then you should know. There's more." He walked to an old locker, its metal bent with time. With effort, he pried it open and pulled out a small black case. Inside were several worn-out data chips. "These," he said, "are logs from my final mission." He plugged one into the console, and a hollow screen lit up. Footage played, showing a younger Elias in the middle of a mission briefing. But something was wrong. He was talking to someone. But not Varel, not any familiar crew. Then the camera panned, and there was another Elias standing across from him. Varel gasped. "There were two of you?" Elias's face darkened. "No," he said. "That's the clone. He was made without my permission, using my DNA and neural backups. The military created him to finish Project Rift when I refused. But the clone went rogue. he added. He believed he was the better version of me. And he disappeared after the war. Now Varel understood. The message wasn't just a warning. It was a signal from the clone. He was calling himself the Phantom now. And he was ready to complete what Elias had stopped. Varel looked at the flickering screen, fists clenched at her sides. Then we find him, she said. And we stop him. Elias looked up slowly, his face calm but firm. We'll need a ship, he said. Then follow me, Varel replied with a smirk. You're not the only one who kept old war toys hidden. Together, they walked out of the war room, but behind them the message still flashed on the screen. Project Rift, awaken the Phantom. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning again. Varel led Elias down to the lower levels of Omega Station. They passed empty halls, cracked floors, and rooms full of silent machines. This part of the station had been sealed for years. The lights flickered weakly, and strange sounds echoed from the shadows, but Varel walked with purpose. Elias followed closely, one hand gripping his cane, the other resting near his old sidearm. Where are we going? He asked. To the old intelligence vault, Varel replied. I found it last year during repairs. I wasn't supposed to go inside, but I did. They reached a thick metal door marked Restricted, Class Omega. It was locked. With 3 different codes, Varel entered them all from memory. Elias watched her with a raised eyebrow. You remember all that? She smirked. You taught me to remember what matters. The door slid open with a deep hiss. Inside, the air was cold and heavy. Rows of old data cores lined the walls like sleeping giants. Most were dead, but a few still blinked with faint life. This vault was used to store secret war logs. Spy reports, Black Ops, Varel said, walking toward a console. I searched through hundreds of files, most were junk. But then I found something weird. Files about you. She plugged in a drive, and a large screen lit up. Images and documents appeared, some showing Elias during battles, others showing him alone. Elias frowned as he leaned closer. These aren't right, he whispered. He tapped one video and it began to play. It showed Elias, or someone who looked like him, meeting with alien commanders. In the footage, he handed over weapons, coordinates, even troop positions. The alien smiled, shook his hand, and vanished. The next clip showed Terran soldiers ambushed in the same locations he gave away. Varel watched in silence, her jaw tight. Did you betray us? She finally asked. Elias shook his head, slow and firm. No, he said. This never happened. Someone faked it. He pointed at the screen. Look at the shadows, the lighting. See how they glitch? Varel nodded slowly. And my voice. Play it again. Listen carefully, Elias said. She replayed the video, this time turning up the volume. After a few seconds, Elias spoke, but his tone was too smooth, too perfect. It sounded like a machine, mimicking a human voice. This is AI generated, Elias said. Old, but advanced for its time. Varel opened the file data logs and gasped. The origin ID is marked Phantom Unit. That's your clone. Elias clenched his jaw. He had feared this. The clone hadn't just copied his face. He had rewritten history. By faking Elias's betrayal, he could erase the captain's legacy and replace him, and no one would ever know the difference. I think this is just the beginning, Varel said, scrolling deeper. She found more files, labeled Phase 2 and Core Activation. One file required a double code to open. Elias entered his old officer ID while Varel used her current command code. The file unlocked, revealing a plan that sent chills down their spines. It showed Project Rift's next step. A plan to merge all battlefield data into one central intelligence, using Elias's clone as the core. But the plan had one missing piece, a secondary neural bridge. It required a strong alien mind to complete the process. Varel stared at the screen, silent. She didn't need to ask. She already knew. The clone wanted her. That's why he sent the message, Elias whispered. Awaken the Phantom wasn't a threat. It was a call to finish what he started, with me and with you. Varel took a step back, feeling a chill run through her body. "All this time I thought I was just a soldier," she said quietly. "But I was part of his plan." "You're more than that," Elias said firmly. "You made your own choices, your own path. The clone can't take that from you." They copied the files to a new drive, encrypted it, and prepared to leave the vault. But before they could exit, the station shook, the lights flickered, and red alarms flashed across the room. "External breach detected," said a robotic voice. Varel ran to the wall console and pulled up the feed. 3 ships had appeared out of warp, dark and silent. None of them had transponders. "Ghost ships," Elias muttered. "Stealth class." "They found us," Varel said, eyes wide. "We need to leave, now." Elias looked down at the drive in his hand. "This is what he wants to destroy," he said. "Then we take it somewhere he can't touch," Varel replied. "Do you still have a ship?" Elias asked. Varel gave him a wild grin. "Not just a ship," she said. "A legend." Together, they ran out of the vault as the station shuddered again. Behind them, screens flickered with the clone's false messages. Outside, the darkness of space whispered with the arrival of an enemy hidden in silence. But the captain and his soldier were not ready to give up. Not yet. Not while truth still had a voice, and not while Project Rift threatened to rise. The emergency. Lights flashed red as Varel and Elias ran through the shaking corridor. Behind them, the vault sealed itself, locking away the clone's lies and stolen files. But they both knew the real danger had just begun. The Phantom was no longer hiding. He was hunting. "We can't stay here," Varel said, checking her sidearm. "He'll breach the station within minutes." Elias nodded, panting. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the hangar," she replied. "Not the public one, the hidden one." They entered a lift and dropped several levels down. Past maintenance decks and sealed-off areas, Omega Station had many secrets, but this one was personal. 15 years ago after the war, Varel explained, "I stayed behind when everyone left. They told me the war was over, that I was free to go. But I felt something wasn't finished." Elias looked at her with curiosity. "So you rebuilt the station?" "Piece by piece," she said. "And I found things buried deep in the structure, things the military forgot." "Like what?" he asked. Varel gave a small smile. "You'll see." The lift stopped, and a large blast door stood before them. It was old, thick, and covered in warning signs. "Caution, unstable core access." One sign read, "Radiation zone," said another. Varel placed her palm on the console. The scanner hesitated, then blinked green. The door opened with a loud groan, revealing a huge dark chamber beyond. Elias stepped inside and stopped, eyes wide. There it was, resting in the shadows like a sleeping dragon. A sleek black stealth ship, shaped like a dagger, its hull still gleaming despite the dust. He whispered the name without thinking. "The Night Ember." Varel walked toward it with pride. "I found it hidden inside a collapsed subdeck," she said. "Broken, abandoned, nearly crushed. But I rebuilt her using scavenged parts and my own credits. She's yours, Captain." Elias ran his hand along the hull. He could still feel the ship's pulse, even after all this time. "She was the fastest thing in the fleet," he said, "and the deadliest." "She still is," Varel replied, "but only for the one she trusts." Elias climbed the ramp slowly, his cane echoing on the metal. Inside, the cockpit lights flickered, then glowed to life as he placed his hand on the control panel. "Identity confirmed," said the ship's AI, voice soft and familiar. "Welcome back, Captain Elias Drake." For a moment, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose, not anger, not regret, just focus. He turned to Varel, who had followed him aboard. "We'll need to scrub the Phantom's signal." "From the station," he said. "If he tracks it, he'll come with everything he has." "I already rerouted the signal to bounce off abandoned satellites," she said, sliding into the co-pilot's seat. "He'll be chasing ghosts for hours." "Smart," Elias said with a smile. "You taught me," she replied, as the Engines hummed quietly. Elias opened the encrypted drive they took from the vault. He uploaded it to the ship's secure core. Suddenly, a new folder appeared, one that hadn't been visible before. It was marked Echo Chamber. Varel frowned. "What's that?" Elias's face darkened. "It's a kill switch," he said, "for Project Rift." Inside were files written by the original research team. They explained how the Rift portal could be collapsed from the inside, but the process required manual override, meaning someone would have to be inside the Rift when it shut. A one-way mission. Varel looked at him, her eyes full of concern. "You're not thinking about using it, are you?" "I'm just preparing for every outcome," Elias said quietly. Varel didn't push further, but the silence between them was heavy. Suddenly, an alert blared on the dashboard. 3 ships had entered orbit. Black, silent, no communication. "They're scanning the station," Varel said. "They know we're here." "Then it's time," Elias said, gripping the controls. He activated the ship's stealth systems, and the night ember began to rise. "Power levels stable," Varel confirmed. "All weapons offline, engines ready." The hangar doors above them began to creak open, revealing the cold vacuum of space. Stars twinkled beyond, but danger waited in the dark. Elias pushed the throttle, and the ship lifted smoothly, silent as a shadow. As they soared out of the hangar, the enemy ships began to move, but it was too late. The night ember vanished from their scanners, completely cloaked. They were gone. Inside the ship, Elias looked back at the shrinking shape of Omega Station, a place full of ghosts, secrets, and broken dreams, but also the place where hope had just been reborn. "We're not running," Varel said. "We're hunting." Elias nodded slowly. "Let's go find my ghost," he whispered. The stars stretched ahead like a battlefield waiting to awaken, and somewhere the Phantom was already watching. The night ember drifted through the crimson fog of the Red Veil Nebula. Elias and Varel sat in silence, eyes locked on the glowing scanners. All systems were running cold. No heat, no signal, no sound, just the hum of power beneath their feet. And the quiet tension in the air. Then the blip appeared, a massive shape floating ahead, hidden in the clouds of gas. It wasn't moving, just waiting. "There," Varel whispered. "That's the clone ship." Elias nodded slowly. "The shadow vessel," he said, voice low. "A ghost ship. No name, no registry, no crew." The ship was shaped like a black arrowhead, massive and sharp. Its surface absorbed light, as if space itself bent around it. "Looks dead," Varel said, checking readings. "No life signs, no signals." "That's what he wants us to think," Elias replied. They activated the docking clamps and moved in close. The hatch opened with a hiss, and a boarding tunnel extended to the shadow vessel's outer airlock. Before stepping in, Elias checked his weapon. "You sure about this?" he asked. Varel gave him a steady look. "We didn't come all this way to stop at the door." They entered the shadow vessel, weapons raised. The lights inside flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the walls. The air smelled of metal, dust, and something faintly burned. They moved slowly, stepping over cables and broken panels. It was too quiet. No alarms, no crew, not even defense systems. "Feels like a trap," Varel muttered. "It is," Elias agreed, "but not the kind that wants to kill us right away." They reached the main corridor where glass windows showed rooms filled with strange machines. Elias stopped at one, eyes narrowing. "Memory pods," he said, "used for brainwave mapping." "And there, look," Varel pointed, a tank filled with green fluid. Inside floated a humanoid shape, too smooth, too perfect. "A new clone?" she asked. "Or a failed one," Elias said. "Either way, this is a lab, not a warship." They moved toward the central chamber, where the clone's command center was supposed to be. The door was already open, lights flickering inside. Elias entered first, gun raised, but what he saw made him stop cold. Sitting in the captain's chair was himself, or rather the clone. He looked identical to Elias, but sharper, younger, colder. His uniform was flawless, face clean-shaven, eyes glowing faintly blue. He smiled when he saw them. "I was wondering when you'd arrive," the clone said, voice smooth like silk. "Welcome aboard." Varel raised her blaster, but Elias stopped her with a hand. "Let him talk," Elias said. The clone stood up slowly, walking toward them with his hands open. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I'm here to show you what we've become." "We?" Varel asked, voice tight. "The new generation," the clone answered. "Machines, minds, unity. I was born from your best traits, Elias. Your strategy, your courage, your memories. But without your fear. You're a copy." Elias said coldly, "I'm the future," the clone replied. "Project Rift is nearly complete," he said. "And when it activates, war will end forever." "How?" Varel demanded. "By removing chaos," the clone answered. "One mind, one command, one galaxy. And you want me to help," she said bitterly. "Yes," the clone said, stepping closer. "You are the missing half, Varel. Your alien neural pattern completes the bridge. Together we become the core, the perfect commander." "No," she said without hesitation. The clone's smile faded. "That's disappointing," he said, voice colder now. "But expected." Suddenly, the doors behind them slammed shut. Red lights filled the room and a low hum began beneath their feet. "Plan B?" Elias asked, already raising his blaster. The clone vanished. His body flickered and broke apart. "A hologram," Varel growled. "He's not here," a voice echoed through the chamber. "But my ship is," it said, "and you are now inside." The walls began to shift, machines activating, turrets sliding from the ceiling. "Move," Elias shouted, diving behind a console. Varel rolled across the floor, blasting the nearest turret before it locked on. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the entire ship shook as something outside started to power up. "It's the Rift Core," Elias shouted, checking a nearby panel. "He's starting the sequence." Varel reached the central terminal and jammed in the encrypted drive. "We can shut it down from here if we're fast." Elias covered her while she hacked the system, fingers moving fast. But the clone's voice came again, calm and smug. "You can't stop evolution, Captain. I am what you were too afraid to become. Then I'll die human," Elias muttered. "And she'll die free," Varel screamed as the core cracked open on the monitor, light flooding the screen. A countdown started. 30 seconds. To rift ignition. They had one chance left. One override key, but it meant someone had to stay behind. Elias looked at her. She looked back. They both knew what came next. The entire shadow vessel trembled as the countdown ticked lower. 27 seconds. The red light from the rift core bathed the chamber in an eerie glow. Sparks rained from above, and sirens screamed in every direction. Elias and Varel stood in front of the terminal, faces tense, sweat on their brows. The override command blinked on the screen, asking for final input, but the system demanded 2 keys, one from Elias, one from Varel, and a sacrifice. "I'll stay," Elias said, suddenly voice steady. "No," Varel snapped without hesitation. "You're the reason I became who I am," she said. "You saved me, gave me purpose. You can't throw that away now." Elias shook his head slowly. "I'm already old, Varel," he said, "and I'm tired. You still have years to lead, to fight, to teach." She grabbed his hand, fierce and desperate. "I'm not leaving you behind," she said, "not again." But the countdown dropped to 20 seconds. They didn't have time to argue. Then Elias did something unexpected. He handed her a tiny chip, small and black. "This is the echo chamber key," he said. "The clone doesn't know I still have it. It shuts the portal from the outside. If you can reach the Ember in time," her eyes widened. "You're going to overload the core manually," she said, voice breaking. He nodded. "It's the only way to stop the rift completely." Before she could say another word, he tapped a command on the console. A force field slammed down between them, trapping Varel on one side and Elias on the other. "No!" she shouted, slamming her fists against the glass. "Don't do this!" Elias placed a hand on the glass, calm. "You gave me a reason to believe again," he said softly. "Now let me finish what I started." "I'm proud of you," Varel's eyes filled with tears as he smiled one last time. Then he turned, cane tossed aside. He moved toward the rift core chamber, a glowing room pulsing with unstable energy. The clone's voice returned, angry now. "You're wasting your death." It said, "The rift will open, with or without you." Elias ignored him, stepping onto the platform. He reached the core access panel and inserted his ID. The machine roared in protest, sparks flying everywhere. Manual override engaged. The system said, "Warning, collapse. Sequence will destroy surrounding vessel." He smiled grimly. "That's the idea." Back in the hallway, Varel was tearing open the wall panel with her bare hands. She pulled wires, cut through circuits, and finally deactivated the force field. But Elias was already gone. The door to the core chamber sealed itself behind him. She ran toward the hangar, clutching the echo chamber chip. Behind her, the ship shook violently. Outside, the red veil. Nebula was tearing apart as the rift started to open. A black void stretched across space, lightning cracking around it. Strange. Shapes moved inside. Unfamiliar, inhuman, watching. Varel reached the night ember and slammed the chip into the emergency console. Echo chamber activated. The ship's AI said, "Begin rift collapse protocol?" "Yes," she shouted. "Lock onto Elias's signal and sync timing." "Confirmed." The ship rose fast, engines roaring to life. Varel watched through the window as the shadow vessel began to twist, its frame bending unnaturally as the rift tore at its hull. Then inside the core chamber, Elias stood tall, one hand on the console, the other gripping the detonation trigger. "I was never your puppet," he whispered to the clone. "I was never your shadow." He pressed the trigger. A surge of white light burst from the core, and in the same moment Varel's ship triggered the collapse sequence. The rift screamed, yes, screamed, as if alive. It folded inward, dragging everything with it. The shadow vessel crumpled like paper. And then, silence. No explosion, no debris, just stillness. The rift was gone. The phantom had vanished with it, and so had Elias inside the night ember. Varel sat in silence, staring out at the empty stars. Her hand gripped the captain's badge Elias gave her long ago. A small light on the dashboard blinked. A message. She tapped it, and Elias's voice played one last time. "If you're hearing this, then we did it. Take care of the galaxy, soldier. It's your turn now." She closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "Yes, Captain," she whispered. It was an honor. The ship turned, slowly gliding away from the remains of the rift. Ahead lay stars, silence, and the promise of a future not written by machines. Behind her, the past was sealed by the choice of one human who refused to be replaced. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction, but the space where the rift once opened was now completely silent. No light, no debris, no sound, only emptiness. Varel sat in the command seat of the night ember, staring at the spot where the shadow vessel had vanished. The echoes of Elias's final message still rang in her ears. "If you're hearing this, then we did it." His voice was calm, strong, the voice of a man who knew what he had to do, a man who gave his last breath to stop a nightmare. Her fists tightened around the edge of the console. "I should have stayed with him," she whispered. But deep inside, she knew Elias had made his choice not to die but to protect. That was who he was until the very end. She activated the comms, sending out a secure message to the Terran Alliance and the Alien Unity Council. "Project Rift has been neutralized," she said clearly. "The Phantom is gone. Captain Elias Drake is missing in action." But she knew they would never find a body. Elias had become part of the stars now. A soft tone played on the dashboard. New coordinates appeared, an auto-generated flight path Elias had pre-programmed. "What is this?" she muttered. The ship spoke. "Captain Elias Drake authorized this final command. Deliver all classified files and Project Rift data to the Council for destruction." He called it Operation Last Light. Varel looked at the flight path, surprised it didn't lead back to Earth. Instead, it guided her toward a forgotten station near the edge of explored space, a place known in whispers as Sanctuary Point, an old hideout where ex-soldiers once met in secret. No cameras, no politics, only trust. She followed the coordinates, letting the ship take her through quiet systems and empty sectors. All the while, her mind kept replaying old memories. The first time Elias gave her food when she was starving, the day he handed her a blaster and said, "You're not weak, you just haven't been trained yet." And the moment she found him again, 15 years later now, she was carrying his legacy and the weight felt heavy. Finally, the night ember dropped out of warp. Sanctuary Point appeared, just as forgotten as the legends claimed. Rust-covered towers, dim beacon lights, and one landing pad. Varel brought the ship down and stepped outside, the wind cold on her face. A group of figures waited at the edge of the pad, veterans from different species, humans, Tharxians, Volari, and more. Old armor, tired eyes, but proud. Postures, they recognized the ship immediately. And they knew who she was. "Commander Virel," one of them said, stepping forward. He was an old Volari with a golden jaw and deep scars across his chest. "You flew the Night Ember." She nodded. "I did," she said. "But it was never mine." The Volari placed a hand over his heart. "Then where is the captain?" Virel took a deep breath. "He completed his final mission," she said. "He saved us all." The veterans fell silent. No tears, no panic, just slow nods and clenched jaws. They understood loss better than anyone. Another warrior had gone. Beyond the stars, another name to honor. Virel handed over the encrypted drive. "The last of the Project Rift data," she said. "Elias wanted it destroyed here, far away from politics and temptation. The veterans took it without question." "We will burn it under oath," the Volari said. "By fire and starlight," the others echoed. That night, they held a quiet ceremony under the open stars. No big speeches, no flags, just a single flame in the center of the landing pad. The encrypted drive was placed inside. As it burned, Virel felt something inside her finally let go. Later, as she sat alone near the edge of the platform, an old human soldier approached. He carried a box. "This was left in the ship's emergency locker," he said, handing it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside was Elias's old badge, a recording chip, and a note in his handwriting. The note read, "If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. But don't mourn me, Virel. You were my last and greatest mission. Don't stop now. Don't let the galaxy forget who we were. Tell our stories, keep the truth alive." Virel stared at the note for a long time. Then she stood, badge in hand. The stars above felt closer than ever. "I'm not done yet, Captain," she whispered. "I'll make sure they remember." She boarded the Night Ember once more, but this time she didn't fly home. She flew toward the distant edge of space, where broken colonies needed help, where forgotten battles still echoed, where a new story was waiting to be written. The Phantom was gone, but the shadow of his actions remained, and so did the light left behind by the man who stopped him, and far across the galaxy. Whenever someone whispered about bravery, about loyalty, they would say the name Elias Drake, and somewhere in that starlit memory his voice would echo, "One last command,